So you're still collecting junk? My brother asked at Thanksgiving, after 13 years of silence. I handed him my business card. He looked like someone slapped him. Next day, he called me wanting to collaborate. Hey everyone! Before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. Sup, Reddit. I walked away from my family at 18 with nothing but a backpack. After 13 years of silence, I showed up at Thanksgiving and humbled them before they even got a chance to run their mouths. They called it junk. I turned it into a business they now pretend to respect. Funny how that works. I'm 31 male, sitting in my house with my fiance, our 6-month-old, and our German Shepherd when my phone rings. Unknown number. Usually I'd ignore it, but something made me pick up. Jared, is that you? 13 years. Haven't heard that voice in 13 freaking years, but I knew it instantly. My mother. Let me back up. I'm the younger son in what looked like a normal family, except everything revolved around my older brother Luke. 2 years older and the star of every show from day one. Luke was the coding prodigy, the future Silicon Valley legend who was going to change the world. Me? I was the kid in the garage rebuilding carburetors, figuring out how engines worked. Nobody called it passion. They called it getting dirty. The garage was my sanctuary. Dad had converted half of it into Luke's computer lab. 3 monitors, gaming chair, the works. My half had a beat-up workbench Gramps built in the 70s, hand-me-down tools, and whatever broken engines I could drag home from junkyards. Only person who got it was my grandfather. Gramps would find me in the garage weekends, sleeves rolled up, working on some junkyard engine. That's real craftsmanship, he'd say. Gramps had a '65 Mustang, Wimbledon white with red interior. He bought it new in Detroit to celebrate his promotion at Ford. That car was his pride and joy, and he made sure I was the one who appreciated it. Someday this beauty's yours, Jared. You're the only one who appreciates real engineering. Every family gathering was the same routine. Luke dominated conversations with his latest app idea, while everyone gathered around like he was some prophet. Coding boot camps, startup pitches, venture capital. The man never shut up. Dad would beam with pride at Luke. Software engineering, that's the future. Real money, real respect. Then he'd glance at me with disappointment, especially when I'd show up with grease under my fingernails. Luke loved rubbing it in. Classic cars are junk. Why fix something old when you can build something new? He'd wave his MacBook around like it was some sacred artifact. This laptop has more computing power than NASA used to reach the moon. I learned early how to become invisible. Easier that way. When I was 16, Gramps died. Heart attack in his sleep. At the funeral, the family was dividing up his stuff. But Gramps was smart, left specific instructions. The Mustang came to me. Keys, title, everything. Along with a note, for Jared, make her purr again. Car had been sitting 3 years after Gramps got too sick to drive. Engine seized from sitting, interior cracked from Michigan winters, paint faded to primer and spots. But the bones were solid. Original sheet metal, matching numbers. Factory build sheet still in the glove box. Spent 2 years rebuilding that Mustang from the ground up. Tore the 289th down to the bare block, rebuilt it piece by piece. Everything cleaned, balanced, and put back together the right way. When I finally fired it up, that deep rumble through the Flowmasters said everything I needed to hear. Luke thought I was insane. Parents agreed it was taking up garage space, and I should be practical. The breaking point came at 18. Got accepted into automotive tech program with partial scholarship. Community college had a reputation for turning out top-level technicians. Their classic car restoration track was legendary. Guys graduated and went straight to Barrett Jackson shops or celebrity collections. Walked into the living room with that acceptance letter, hands shaking from excitement. I got accepted. They're giving me partial scholarship, but I still need $3,000 for tuition. Expected a smile. Maybe congratulations. Got dead silence instead. Dad lowered his paper. You know we're focusing finances on Luke right now. He got accepted to that coding boot camp in San Francisco. What about me? Mom sighed. Luke has a big opportunity, sweetheart. You can always study automotive later. Dad nodded. Work for a few years and save up. That's what I did. I stood there holding that letter, feeling it turn to ash. Everything I'd been excited about meant nothing to them. I could wait. I could figure it out. But Luke? Always yes. Immediately. No questions. That night I packed everything into a backpack. Couple changes of clothes, beat-up sneakers, $300 from part-time work. Nobody stopped me. Nobody asked where I was going. Left around dusk with light rain starting. Turned back once at the end of our street, then kept walking. Made myself a promise. I would never ask them for anything again. The Mustang stayed in their garage. Couldn't afford to register or insure it. But someday, I told myself, someday I'd come back for Gramps' car. Life after leaving home hit like a freight train. First few weeks were rough. Sleeping on benches, looking for work, sunrise to sunset. Learned quick that most places won't hire an 18-year-old with no address and work clothes that smell like they haven't been washed. Only familiar place was this old garage where I'd worked part-time in high school. Tony's Auto Service, wedged between a tire shop and a sandwich place that had seen better days. Tony, the head mechanic, was still there. Guy in his 50s, hands permanently stained with motor oil, didn't talk much but watched everything. Tony had come up the hard way too. Started as a lube tech in the 80s, worked his way up through pure skill. Could diagnose engine problems by sound alone. Customers would drive up and he'd know what was wrong before they popped the hood. Showed up one morning looking like hell. Asked if he needed help. Tony looked me up and down, handed me an oil-stained rag. I don't care who you were before. You willing to work? That's all that matters. Started with the nastiest jobs. Scraping mud off rims, scrubbing gum off floor mats, pushing cars in freezing weather, hands cracked from cold water, nose numb from wind, but I didn't complain once. Learned to read tire wear patterns, spot suspension problems from how cars sat in the bay. Around this time I found Rocky, skinny German shepherd puppy someone had dumped behind the garage. Couldn't have been more than 3 months old, ribs showing, eating garbage scraps. Tony let me keep him around as long as he didn't get in the way. Rocky became my shadow, sleeping in the break room, watching me work, growling at customers who got too loud. Smart dog, learned the routine fast. Knew which tools I needed before I asked for them. Could tell the difference between satisfied customers and the ones about to cause trouble. That dog's got good instincts, Tony would say. Doesn't trust people who talk too much. Worked every shift Tony would give me. Some days rain soaked through my pants, but I kept my head down. Tony noticed. I could feel his eyes watching how I handled difficult customers, how I treated the equipment, whether I took shortcuts when nobody was looking. First real test? Found a cracked vacuum line causing a leak. $5 part, 15-minute job. Car ran perfectly after. Could have told the customer it needed major carburetor work. Made Tony an extra $300. Instead, I replaced the line, charged him for the part, and a half-hour labor. Tony watched the whole thing from across the bay. When the Corvette fired up smooth as silk, he nodded once. That was my promotion to actual technician. Then one Saturday, heard familiar laughter from the parking lot. Looked up, and my heart sank. Luke standing there with our cousins Pete and Dan. Expensive tech company hoodie, designer jeans, whole Silicon Valley wannabe setup. Still playing with junk cars, huh, Jared? I didn't say anything, just kept working, but my skin was burning. Pete looked around disgusted. This place reeks. Can't believe someone chooses to stay in a dump like this when there's real money in tech. Dan joined in. My buddy just got hired at Google. Starting salary is 6 figures. Meanwhile, you're here getting dirty for minimum wage. Luke laughed loudest. Classic cars are dead. Everything's going electric. He's fixing yesterday's trash while I'm building tomorrow's solutions. They walked off, but the damage was done. That night, my phone rang. Dad's voice, irritated as hell. Jared, why did you let family see you doing that low-life job? People will think we failed raising you. Your brother's about to launch his 3rd startup, and you're scrubbing hubcaps like some dropout. I asked you and Mom for help with trade school once. You said no, so now I'm doing it alone. Dad muttered something about not expecting them to introduce me as family if I lived like this. Line went dead. Week later, I was under an old pickup changing oil when Tony walked over. Stood watching me work, arms crossed. You work harder than guys who've been here for years. Never ask for time off, never late, never complain. I crawled out, wiped my hands on Rocky's head. Dog had gotten bigger, more protective. Customers learned quick not to mess with me when Rocky was around. Tony nodded toward a classic Camaro on the lift. You know how to rebuild a Rochester Quadrajet carburetor? Never done one, but I rebuilt the carb on my grandfather's Mustang. Similar principles. First time since I'd known him, Tony smiled. Stay late tonight. I'll show you what real restoration work looks like. That Camaro belonged to a collector who'd brought it from 3 states away. Numbers matching 69 SS 396, original rally green paint, cowl induction hood. Customer had specifically requested Tony because word was getting around about his classic car work. Tony walked me through advanced diagnostics, performance modifications, classic car restoration techniques passed down from old-school mechanics. Showed me how to read casting numbers, date codes, how to spot original parts from reproductions. Modern cars are computers on wheels, Tony explained, hands deep in the Camaro's engine bay. But these old girls are pure mechanical art. You understand one, you understand them all. During this period, I also met Marcus, another guy around my age who worked at the parts store next door. Former Marine, tough as nails, but had my back from day one. We'd grab lunch together, talk shop, and he'd help me track down rare parts for the classic builds. Marcus had his own story. 3 tours overseas, came back and couldn't find work that meant anything. Parts store wasn't glamorous, but he understood quality, understood the difference between genuine parts and cheap knockoffs. You've got something special, Marcus would tell me. Most guys just see broken cars. You see what they used to be. He'd show me how to read part numbers, identify original components, build networks with other parts guys across the country. Classic car restoration runs on relationships, knowing who has what, who can be trusted, who'll send you junk with a smile. Next few weeks, I kept doing wash jobs during the day, stayed nights to learn the trade. Tony started trusting me with classic cars, jobs that required real skill, attention to detail, respect for automotive history. One evening, Tony handed me a piece of paper. Community Tech School Night Program. 2-year certification with specialty track in classic automotive restoration. Same program I'd been accepted to straight out of high school. I know the guy who runs it. If you're serious, I'll write you a recommendation. I stared at that paper, hands shaking. I can pay in installments. Work more hours. Tony waved his hand. I'll cover what the scholarship doesn't. Call it an investment in future staff. First time in my life someone believed I was worth investing in. 2 years of night school while working days. Cold noodles for dinner, studying until midnight, sometimes falling asleep at the break room table, with Rocky curled up next to me. But I never quit. The program was intense. Hands-on work with every American muscle car you could imagine. 67 Shelby GT 500, 70 Plymouth Cuda, 69 Dodge Charger RT. Learn the difference between original and tribute cars, how to spot matching numbers, what made a car valuable versus just old. Marcus helped me stay motivated during the rough patches. You're building something they can never take away from you, he'd say. When I'd complain about being tired, he'd bring me parts catalogs to study, quiz me on casting numbers and date codes. Tony gradually gave me more complex jobs. Classic restorations, performance builds, advanced diagnostics that required understanding both mechanical systems and automotive history. By the time I got certified, my name was in the assignment book as a classic car specialist. Had my first real success with a '68 Mustang 428 Cobra Jet that came in barely running. Owner had taken it to 3 shops, been told the engine was junk, tore down the motor and spotted the issue right away. Cam timing was off by a tooth. Quick fix, but only if you knew what to look for. When that 48 fired up with its characteristic loping idle, putting out 335 horsepower like it did in '68, the owner nearly cried. Paid me a $500 bonus, and sent 2 more customers that month. Year after certification, Tony made it official, promoted me to lead technician for restoration projects. You handle vintage stuff better than guys who've been doing this 20 years. Started building a reputation in the classic car community. Word spreads fast when you can make a numbers-matching 67 L78 Chevelle run, like it did when it left the Chevelle plant in Kansas City. Collectors talk, and they remember who does quality work. One afternoon, Tony pulled me into the back office. Rocky sat at my feet, now full-grown and intimidating as hell. 120 pounds of protective instinct. Ever think about running your own restoration shop? Like my own business? I'm thinking about opening a specialty division. Classic restoration, performance builds, custom work, but I need someone who lives and breathes this stuff. I sat quiet for a few seconds. Sounded huge and terrifying. I've never managed anything before. Tony leaned back with a small smile. And I've never trained anyone with your instincts. 2 months later, I was officially running the restoration division. Small space at first. 2 lifts, specialized tools, parts connections across the country. Hired one experienced tech, Jimmy, who'd worked at a Mustang specialty shop for 15 years. Jimmy knew every fastener on a 65 to 73 Mustang, could spot reproduction parts from across the room, had connections with Ford parts suppliers that most people didn't know existed. Taught me the business side, how to estimate jobs, source rare components, deal with collectors who knew exactly what they wanted. Word spreads fast in the classic car community. Guy brings in a numbers-matching '67 Chevelle SS. You do it right, he tells 10 other collectors. Soon we had more work than we could handle. Marcus had moved on to managing the parts store but still helped me source rare components. You're making me look good, he'd joke. Half my best customers are yours now. The breakthrough came when a collector brought in a 70 Plymouth Cuda that had been sitting in a barn for 30 years. 446 pack car, original in violet paint, numbers matching everything. Rust had gotten to the quarters, but the drivetrain was intact. Spent 8 months on that build. Did a full frame-off restoration. Every part cleaned, rebuilt, and dialed into factory specs. When we were done, it looked like it just rolled off the assembly line. Customer entered it at a national show, took first place in its class. Photos ended up in 3 different magazines. My phone didn't stop ringing for weeks. 3 years later, Restoration Division wasn't just profitable, it was the crown jewel of Tony's operation. Classic car owners driving from 3 states away, waiting lists stretching months ahead. I studied the business side too. How to source rare parts, build relationships with collectors, create documentation for concours-level restorations. Learned about provenance, how to verify matching numbers, what made one car worth $50,000 and another worth $500,000. One Friday, Tony called me to his office after closing, pulled a folder from his desk, slid it across. I'm planning to open a full classic car restoration facility, separate from the regular shop. High-end work, concours restorations, custom builds. I nodded. Sounds like natural expansion. Tony looked at me for a long moment. But I don't want to do it alone this time. I want you to invest. Be my partner. 50-50 on the restoration side. My heart stopped. Tony, I don't have that kind of money. I'm not looking for someone to bring cash. I'm looking for someone with vision, skills, passion. You can take out a small business loan. I'll co-sign. I looked down at the contract with co-owner printed at the top. The kid who'd left home with nothing was being invited to become a business partner. I'm in. Classic car restoration facility opened that spring in a converted warehouse. High ceilings, specialized equipment, climate-controlled storage, paint booth that could handle show-quality finishes, machine shop for custom fabrication, parts storage organized like a library. I handled everything, hiring technicians with classic car experience, establishing workflow procedures, building supplier relationships with everyone from Hemmings Motor News to private collectors selling original parts. We didn't advertise in classic car magazines, collector shows, word of mouth, simple sign, Elite Classic Restorations, where history comes alive. First customer brought in a 69 Boss 429 Mustang that had been sitting in a barn 30 years. One of 857 built, original Wimbledon white paint under decades of dust. Customer had inherited it, didn't know what he had until we cleaned it up. 6 months later, we had a waiting list stretching 2 years. Over the next 8 years, the shop grew faster than we could have predicted. 1 lift turned into 4. Part-time help turned into a full restoration crew. We went from weekend side gigs to booking out over a year in advance. By the time I turned 31, we'd become one of the most respected classic restoration businesses on the East Coast. Tony dropped by every weekend, walked through the builds, checked progress. Then one afternoon, after looking over quarterly reports, have you thought about expanding into performance builds? We've got the reputation now. If this pace keeps up, we could add a performance division. Pro touring builds, Restomod work, custom fabrication. Pro touring was getting big. Classic muscle car bodies with modern suspension, brakes, fuel injection. Best of both worlds for guys who wanted vintage looks with contemporary performance. Tony nodded. I'll be waiting for good news. Right in the middle of expansion planning, I met Isabel, not at some car show or through mutual friends. On a rainy Tuesday when I was knee-deep in a Shelby Cobra restoration, she pulled up in an old Honda Civic, engine making weird noises, steam coming from under the hood. Stepped in with tired eyes, clutching her purse, looking like someone who'd been dealing with car problems all morning. Could someone check this quick? I've got a job interview I can't miss. I was the only one available. Rocky sniffed around her car while I popped the hood, took a look. Classic Honda problem. Rubber radiator hose had split at the clamp, dumping coolant everywhere. Radiator hose blew. Nothing serious. I can patch it temporarily, but you'll need replacement soon. Her eyes widened. That's it? Shop down the street told me I needed a whole new cooling system. I shrugged, already reaching for the emergency hose repair kit. Some places see dollar signs. I see what actually needs fixing. She smiled. Not polite, but real. Then I owe you coffee next time. Next day she came back with coffee and breakfast. Said thanks. Rocky liked her immediately. So did I. That's how it started. Simple and easy. Isabel worked as graphic designer for marketing firm nearby, passed the shop daily. Sometimes stopped with car questions, but ended up staying until XI locked up, fascinated by restoration work. She'd watch me rebuild a carburetor with the same attention other people gave movies. Asked intelligent questions about compression ratios, ignition timing, why certain modifications worked and others didn't. Never been great at expressing feelings, but with her, everything felt lighter. She didn't ask how much I made or judge me for working with my hands. When I explained why a numbers-matching 67 L78 Chevelle was worth more than a clone with the same engine, she actually listened. There's something beautiful about bringing these old cars back to life. Few months later, I asked her to a classic car show, something I'd never shared with anyone except Gramps. She walked through rows of restored muscle cars, asking genuine questions about original paint codes and date-correct components. When she squeezed my hand during a beautiful 67 GTO demonstration, it was warm, steady, full of understanding. Marcus met her at a shop barbecue and pulled me aside later. That one's a keeper. She doesn't try to change you. The real test came when I brought her home to see Grandpa's Mustang. I'd finally gotten it back from my parents' place and had it trailered to my apartment. Spent months getting it back to Concours condition. Correct air cleaner, proper date-coated hoses, factory-correct paint matched to the original Wimbledon white. Isabel ran her fingers along the fender, careful not to disturb the paint. This is the car your grandfather left you? Yeah. 65 Mustang Coupe, 289 4-barrel, factory C-code motor. She looked at the interior. Original red vinyl, door panels, dash pad all restored to factory specifications. It's perfect. That's when I knew she got it. This wasn't just a car to her. It was family history, craftsmanship, connection to something real. We got engaged a year later. No fancy proposal, no elaborate setup. We were working late in the shop. She was helping organize parts catalogs while I tuned a newly rebuilt 454 big block. "Marry me," I said, looking up from the engine bay. She smiled that same real smile from the first day. "About time you asked. Best part came 6 months ago when Isabel told me she was pregnant. Mason was born 6 months ago, and the kid's already showing signs. Put him in his carrier next to whatever car I'm working on, and he goes quiet, just staring at the engine with wide, curious eyes. Rocky has appointed himself the baby's personal guardian, lying next to the carrier, one ear always listening for trouble. We live in a modest 3-bedroom now. Nothing fancy, but there's a 2-car garage where I keep Gramps' Mustang and have space to work on side projects. Main bay holds the Mustang under a custom car cover. Second bay has a lift for whatever project car I'm tinkering with. Every evening, I'll sit in that garage with Mason in my lap and Rocky at my feet, telling him about his great-grandfather and the cars that built America. Kid doesn't understand the words yet, but he listens to the engine sounds I make, little hands reaching toward the chrome. Last month, I was working when my phone rang. Unknown number. Almost let it go to voicemail. "Jared, is that you?" 13 years of silence, but I knew that voice immediately. My mother. "Mom?" Surprised and shaken. "Yes, it's me. I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I just wanted to know if you're okay." I was quiet for a few seconds. "How did you get my number?" "I've been keeping up with you quietly. Still hear bits through relatives. Never called before because you didn't want to hear from me. But this time is different." "What's different?" "Thanksgiving is next week. We're having it at Luke's new place. He just bought this amazing house in Westchester. I thought it would be nice if you came, just this once." I didn't answer right away. After 13 years, now they suddenly wanted a reunion. Luke's doing incredibly well. His latest startup is about to go public. "I'll think about it, Mom." Then I hung up. Sat frozen on the couch, phone in my hand, screen dark. Rocky sensed something was wrong and put his head on my knee. Isabel walked over, Mason on her hip, handed me coffee. Moment she saw my face, she stopped. "You okay?" My mom called. Isabel sat beside me, Mason reaching for my hands. "Your birth mom?" I nodded. After 13 years, she called to invite me to Thanksgiving dinner. Isabel frowned. "After 13 years?" I nodded. "Guess now that Luke's showing off a mansion, they want the forgotten son back." I gave a dry laugh. Isabel didn't say anything right away. Just shifted Mason to one arm and placed her free hand over mine. "It's been 13 years, Jared. Maybe things have changed?" I looked toward the garage where Gramps' Mustang sat under a car cover. Down the hall, Mason made those little baby sounds that always made me smile. Rocky stretched out on the floor between us. My real family was right here. "I don't know. I've gotten used to life without them. But if you don't go, will you ever stop wondering what if?" After a long pause, I nodded slowly. "I'll think about it." That night, I picked up my phone. Texted Mom, "I'll come." Thanksgiving was at Luke's new place in Westchester. At 4 p.m., The three of us pulled up in Gramps' Mustang with Rocky in the back seat. Cars in the driveway told the whole story. Luke's Tesla Model S, Dad's new BMW 7 Series, Mom's Lexus GX 460. Then there was the 65 Mustang, Wimbledon white with red interior, chrome gleaming. The Mustang stole the driveway. Neighbors stopped what they were doing. Original muscle cars done right always do. Before I could ring the bell, the door swung open. Luke stood there in expensive casual clothes. Designer jeans, cashmere sweater, Apple Watch catching the light. Still looked like he was trying too hard to prove something. Jared, genuine surprise in his voice. You actually came. Yeah, I came. I glanced past him toward the interior. Nice place. Family was gathered around a massive granite island in the kitchen. Same cast from 13 years ago, just older and more prosperous looking. When they saw me walk in with Isabel, Mason, and Rocky, conversation stopped mid-sentence. Jared, Mom's voice cut through the silence. She quickly set down a wine glass, stepped forward with that same flustered expression from my childhood. It's really you. Yeah, it's me. I looked around, offered a polite nod. Everyone. The kitchen seemed to hold its breath. Then my aunt stepped forward with an overly bright smile. Oh, Jared, it's been so long. And who is this little angel? I shifted Mason in my arms. My son, Mason. This is my fiancée, Isabel. Luke was still standing nearby, and I could see him taking inventory. My work clothes. The fact that I wasn't wearing expensive jewelry. So, Luke said, voice dripping with familiar smugness, what are you up to these days? Still playing mechanic with those rust buckets? He turned to the room with a theatrical gesture. You guys should see some of the junk Jared used to work on. Called them classics, but they were just old broken down cars. Few family members chuckled. Luke was just getting warmed up. The future is electric, autonomous vehicles, AI-driven transportation solutions. But some people just can't let go of the past, you know? Room went quiet. Everyone turned to look at me, waiting for the answer they thought they already knew. The family disappointment, still getting his hands dirty while Luke conquered Silicon Valley. I reached into my wallet, pulled out a business card, handed it to Luke. Actually, yeah, still working on cars. Luke glanced at the card, did a double take, then looked back at me with confusion. Elite Classic Restorations? He pulled out his phone, because of course he did, and started typing. Room was dead silent. Then Luke's expression changed completely. Dude looked like I handed him divorce papers. This is you? He said, voice dropping. He turned the phone toward the room, started reading. Elite Classic Restorations, premier high-end classic car restoration facility specializing in concourse-level builds and custom performance work. Room was frozen. Luke kept scrolling, his face getting paler with each line. Co-owner Jared Hamilton has built a reputation as one of the East Coast's leading classic car restoration specialists, with clients including celebrity collectors and museum-quality builds. He slowly lowered the phone, looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time. Room had gone dead silent. You own this place? I nodded once. Co-owner. Started from washing cars, built it up over 13 years. Mom was standing there with her mouth open. Dad had gone completely quiet. The cousins who used to laugh at my grease monkey hobby were staring like I'd just revealed I was secretly Batman. Luke's voice came out smaller than usual. Jared, some of these builds, they're worth more than what, Luke? More than your startup that's always 6 months away from going public? I could see him struggling, trying to find his footing. Well, I mean, my latest venture is about to, let me guess, this one's the big break, just like the last 3 companies that were going to make you the next Steve Jobs. I turned to Isabel. We should head home. Mason needs his dinner. As we walked toward the door, I heard Mom's voice behind me. Jared, wait. I'm proud of you. I paused at the doorway. Didn't turn around. Just said loud enough for the whole room to hear. 13 years too late, Mom. But thanks. Then we walked out, got in the Mustang with Rocky, and drove away from a Thanksgiving dinner where nobody was giving thanks anymore. Next morning, I woke up like any other day. At 8 a.m., my phone started buzzing. Luke's number appeared first, then a bunch of messages from him and the parents. Marcus called me around noon, laughing his ass off. Word got around that you shut down your whole family yesterday. About damn time. I scrolled through all the messages from Luke, but didn't respond. Then my phone rang. Luke's number. Jared, look, I may have come across something wrong yesterday. I just had no idea you'd built something so substantial. I set down my screwdriver, wiped my hands on a rag. Rocky was lying nearby, ears perked up at the sound of my phone. What did you think I was doing for 13 years? I don't know. I just figured you were getting by, working at some garage. But this is impressive. Really impressive. Before I could respond, I heard other voices in the background. He had me on speaker. Dad's voice cut in. Son, we want to make things right. Family is family. Then Mom. We made mistakes, Jared. Maybe you could help Luke with the business side? Luke's voice again, getting excited. Actually, yeah. I've got some venture capital connections. We could disrupt the whole classic car industry. I could hear the BS flowing like water. Same old Luke, trying to insert his nonsense into everything. Probably wanted to create an app for carburetor tuning or blockchain-based parts authentication. Plus, Luke continued, I've got a new round of capital lined up that's going to blow this wide open. Luke, I interrupted. What's the name of your current company? Slight pause. Well, we're in stealth mode right now, but... And the last company? The one that was going to revolutionize social media? Silence. I let out a quiet laugh. Not bitter, just tired. Let me get this straight. For 13 years, you called my work junk. Now you want to be partners? Silence on the other end. Luke, you spent years mocking everything I cared about. Now you want to bring blockchain to my business? That was different, Luke said quietly. I was young. I didn't understand. You didn't understand because you were too busy running your mouth about the next big thing. Dad's voice came through, irritated now. You're being unreasonable, Jared. I'm not holding anything against him. I'm just not interested in his latest pitch. Just then, my phone buzzed with a text from my cousin Nick, Pete's younger brother, the only decent one in that branch of the family. Nick had always been straight with me. Never bought into the Luke worship. The text made my blood run cold. Heard you talk to the family. FYI, Luke's in deep trouble. Owes over $250,000 to investors. Parents mortgaged the house twice to bail him out. I stared at that message. Everything clicking into place. The desperate tone in Luke's voice. Mom and Dad are pushing so hard for reconciliation. The sudden interest in my substantial business. You know what? I said, voice getting colder. Want to tell me about your current financial situation? Dead silence. Then scrambling sounds, like he was taking me off speaker. What do you mean? Luke's voice, much quieter now. I mean the $250,000 you owe investors. I mean Mom and Dad's house being mortgaged twice to cover your failures. The silence stretched so long, I thought he'd hung up. Finally, Luke's voice came back, all the arrogance gone. Who told you that? Is it true? Another long pause. It's complicated. The market shifted. Cut the crap, Luke. Are you broke or not? I'm not broke, he said weakly. I'm just between successes right now. Between successes. That's good. Mom's voice came back, frantic now. Jared, family helps family. Really? Because I remember asking for help once. You told me to figure it out myself. This is different. How much, Mom? How much of your retirement did you give him? That's not your concern, Dad snapped. We invest in our children's futures. Number you invested in one child's future. The other one you told to figure it out himself. And you know what? I did. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to hang up this phone. I'm going to block all your numbers. And if any of you show up at my business or my house, I'll call the cops. Jared, please, Mom started. And Luke, next time you're at a family gathering, talking about how your brother works on junk cars, remember this conversation. Luke's voice came through one last time, barely a whisper. Jared, I'm sorry. Yeah, you are. Then I hung up, blocked every number I could think of, and went back to rebuilding that carburetor. Through the shop windows, I could see Isabel in the house, Mason in her arms, both of them watching me work. My real family. The only opinions that mattered. Later that evening, Marcus stopped by with a 6-pack of drinks and some takeout. Word had gotten around about my family reunion. So how'd it feel? He asked, settling into the chair across from my workbench. Like closing a door that should have been closed years ago. Marcus nodded, understanding without needing details. Blood gets you in the door. Respect decides if you stay. I looked around the shop. Tony had become the father figure I'd needed. Marcus was the brother who actually had my back. Isabel and Mason were the future I was building. Even Rocky had chosen me over whoever had abandoned him. Yeah, I said, turning back to the carburetor rebuild. Sometimes it is. It's been a month since that Thanksgiving dinner and the phone call that revealed everything. Life has returned to its quiet rhythm. The restoration business is booming. We just finished a numbers-matching 70 Plymouth Cuda that's heading to Barrett-Jackson next month. Last week, cousin Nick called with an update. Luke's latest startup was apparently just a consulting firm with no actual product. The investors he owed money to were getting impatient, threatening legal action. He's been telling everyone his company's about to go public, Nick said. But from what I can tell, it's just him and a website he built himself. I wasn't surprised. Mason's growing fast, already trying to grab tools when I hold him. He's going to be a trouble, Isabel said. Good trouble, I replied. Next month, we're getting married. Small ceremony, family and friends who actually matter. Tony's giving me away. Figured that was appropriate, since he's the closest thing to a father I've had since Gramps died. I have no regrets about walking away from the people who share my blood, but never shared my respect. Every time I fire up the Mustang and hear that 289 purr through the Flowmaster mufflers, I'm reminded that some things have lasting value, and some people understand the difference between building something real and just talking about it. The fraud can keep his fake empire and his borrowed lifestyle. I've got something better, a legacy built with honest work, one perfectly restored engine at a time.